Just moved her over.
Is she there?
Yep, she's on.
Colleen? All right. So Colleen, if you're ready,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Or everyone, I should say. I just wanted to make another plea for my additional request. I am asking for a part-time. I currently have a part-time clerk who works during the summer during our high volume time. We have had this person as a seasonal person, I would say maybe for 10 years, because in the past, we've always had 2.5 people in our office. This was actually cut about 10 years ago. So we've reduced it, so we only have that person during the summer. We have felt a need that it would be very beneficial to not only our office and also to the public. We've noticed a high volume of, for instance, real estate transfers, a lot of research or providing customer service for our taxpayers, research for attorneys, state agents. And we also Christina and I need to attend seminars in order to maintain our certification. So it would be beneficial to have someone working like 12 hours a week for our non-peak season. We could have that person extended. So we would be able to train this person. We want to have a new person every summer. They would be able to work at the counter, processing payments, answering questions by taxpayers, and we really feel it would be a plus for our office. So that's my hope, is that you would consider funding this. We would really appreciate it.
Thanks, Colleen. I'm going to open it up to any of the Board of Finance members who have any questions. And Justin, I'm relying on you, so I can't see any hands.
There aren't any right now. Colleen, I'll ask you a question if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you envision, sorry if I don't know this already, but would this person be like 2 days of 6 hours, or how would you envision them coming in, over a week, typical week?
Sure. I would like them to work 3 days a week. And that way, because we've experienced that the mail really doesn't get put in our post office box until after 11 o'clock. So we really want to use the main portion of our day, the high volume part between, like say 12 to 4, covering lunches. And that way they can process mail and that's our peak part of the day.
Jean has her.
Go ahead, Jean.
Do you anticipate any issue getting someone for just the 12 hours?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
Usually we have had luck, like maybe getting someone just looking for a part-time position or a senior.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of working with Lorraine Horvath for 10 years, and that was wonderful. She taught me so much and to really enjoy my job. So
Good. Well, for what it's worth, I do believe that that's a reasonable request for your office. There's just 2 of you.
Thank you.
So Colleen, you don't have anybody in mind at this moment. You're looking to have this person train this person and to have
That's
them.
correct. Yes.
And I'm assuming the conveyance tax and a few other things made it very busy.
Oh my gosh. It's, because with all the real estate transfers, we're constantly, sending out, we have to update our tax bills and sending out new tax bills to the new owners. And just making sure that everybody stays on track and communicates. So it's a lot of work.
Thanks. Any other questions for Colleen? I appreciate you coming here and explaining it to us.
Well, thank you.
So just a follow up, Colleen, if someone does come to the window to pay their taxes and there's nobody there, does that mean they don't have to pay them?
Definitely not.
Nice try, Justin.
Yeah, right. Our other options when we are closing the office, we do have a Dropbox that people can put their payment in, you know, if it's a check. They can pay online. That is an option. You know, but I'm sorry. Jean, did you have a question?
Well, if Peggy's on the line, isn't she? I was just curious as to the Board of Selectmen's rationale for not doing it. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Peggy, but just I was curious to what the conversation was around this addition.
I don't know if Peggy's still on or not. We were going to bring her up next, Jean, so she could answer it at any point. No, you know what I mean? So there are a couple things we had to ask her. So
Okay.
if you want to save that
Yeah.
until she gets on, that'd be easier.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Any other questions specifically for Colleen? Again, Colleen, thank you very much. And we appreciate you taking the time to present what you feel is needed for your office.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Peggy.
It's all right. So Peg, before I know Jean's gonna have a question for Peggy, and I want to obviously open that up, but I wanted Peggy to go through. She had some reorganization she wanted to go through, so I wanted to let her go through that if that's okay, and then we can ask questions on whatever to the first select.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with the video, so I don't know what's going on. I've got three different screens going on right now, so I apologize. So
Just the one in the middle. No, I'm just kidding.
So basically, I'm planning on doing kind of a staff reorganization for the next fiscal year. And I've already kind of briefed the Board of Selectmen on it, that basically changes some of the reporting relationships and tries to streamline the reporting relationships to me. And what I would like to do, if I can get this to work on here, so hold on.
Am I the only one who can't hear, or is it me?
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you before at all.
All right, I'm having just all kinds of weird problems. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna adjust, pull that out. And
It's almost
then,
though you're done with your presentation. You're just, smiling. But
I'm smiling because I enjoy every second of this.
you are good, Fillmore.
all right. I'm back on my laptop, so I just gave up on my other thing. So hold on. All right, so what I'm going to do is show you this, and I'm sure Fillmore will be very entertained by this discussion, given he was a first selectman as well. This is the current organization structure. of the town. And as first selectman, I have 15 direct reports. And I feel that as trying to manage an organization on a day-to-day basis with a lot of departmental needs, complaints to be followed up on, decisions to be made on operational things, it's just a lot of pragmatic structure. And so what I've tried to do is basically look at some of our strong leaders in town. And we have some great people in our organization that I felt like, and this has been done before in the past, so Fillmore may have a little deja vu. I think this might have been done by Tom Scarpati, is to create kind of a super director concept. So, and I call it a divisional structure. And what I'm doing is I'm elevating two of our senior staff and having them oversee multiple departments. So I'm creating a town operations division and then a division of finance and administrative services. And so under the town operations division, each of these departments would still be separate departments. They would still have a department leader or department director. There wouldn't be any change in terms of their day-to-day responsibilities, but there would be a managerial layer over them to help coordinate with all the other different departments in the division. And so the town operations division would be led by Sam DeBura, and it would oversee public works, land use, public health, building inspector, and then emergency management and fire marshal, which are Sam would continue in those roles. The finance and administrative services division would be led by Stacy Nobitz, and it would include the finance department, as well as the assessor, who already does report to Stacy, and then it would also include the tax collector. And then we did this kind of last year. We consolidated senior services with beach and recreation under a strong leader. And so, my goals for this are to break the silos down between departments, encourage more cross-sharing across departments so that some of the administrative functions could be, perhaps people can be cross-trained across functions, get everybody on the same software, the same payment systems. Everything right now is siloed by department, by these 15 different departments, and every department director makes their own individual decisions for what their department wants. And so I'm trying to just encourage more collaboration across the different departments. And so the requests that have been made, some of these are related to extra hours. I just felt that given we're moving towards the structure, perhaps we can have people assist each other across departments. So for example, I know Colleen just put out a request because she and Christine are planning on going to a conference. And so they want to be able to close for a day or two to accepting payments. Those are things that we can train people to do. But I also will say that I think we need to think differently. We've come out of COVID now. People don't go to town hall like they used to. They do more and more of their services online. And one of the things I'm actually going to be implementing this spring is having each department track who comes to the actual office, at what time of day did they come to the office, and why are they coming to the office? So to try to get a better handle, right now we have an infrastructure and a staff profile that is based on people being available all the time at the counter from 8:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just want to look at all this and think differently, because COVID has taught us, obviously, that for basically at least 6 months, we were closed to the public completely. And yet we adequately got taxes paid. The public got service. And so I just didn't want to commit. And it's not that these aren't without merit. And I feel all the staff could use additional support help. I want to do it thoughtfully. Maybe it's going to be a pool of resources that each department can tap into. That was another one of the requests, was the building department. And I think Finney had come to you, and I absolutely support them. They feel there's a need, but I'm trying to look at things in a different way. I'm trying to look at sharing and partnering, and also rethinking how we provide services to the community. So I didn't want to lock those into the budget. And then, as we learn through this, that maybe we didn't need that. Maybe one of the things we did during the pandemic was we rotated staff like the 2020 election was huge amount of staff resources were needed to get that. Cause for all of a sudden we were doing all this absentee ballot stuff had to happen. So we actually redeployed people from Beach and Rec to assist Nancy's office. The pandemic, when we did the vaccine clinics, we took people from senior services and Beach and Rec and helped the health department. So we did it during the pandemic and we were successful. So that's kind of a long discussion about some of my thinking. The budget that you see was something I proposed to try to just keep the fixed costs down as much as can. I wanted to give everybody what they wanted, but I tried to be methodical and say, hey, anything extra hours that aren't necessarily specialized skills, maybe we can look to share. So that's a long-winded explanation as usual for a simple question. I hope it answered it though.
Thank you, Peggy. Questions for Peggy? Fillmore?
Yes, Fillmore.
Yes, well, since you virtually told me to ask questions,
Yes.
Could you put up that chart again?
Yes.
that-
If I can find it again. Okay. This.
Yeah.
That one, Fillmore?
Yeah, that one, no, probably the next one.
The next one, right? Yeah.
The one with the proposed.
Department heads.
Yeah, that is the proposed.
So
This
you
is-
have people reporting to the finance director. It's the next thing was it?
Yeah, this is it. This is the new proposal. The one before is the old.
No, this says current organization.
Yeah.
We see the
Oh.
other-
Yeah.
we see the-
That's so
Thank
funny because for me, it's showing proposed. So let me go back, do a share again.
And Fillmore, we can still read, but it's okay.
I like my,
There
is
you
this
go.
there
showing?
you go.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Just a couple of comments. Yes, that back a few years ago, it was a little bit more centralized than what it is now. I think we all remember Alma Carroll as Director of Town Services she was the tax collector, but she also had the assessor and the clerk reporting to her, and just unofficially anything else I needed to have done ended up being reported to Alma because she took care of it. And then of course you have already a combined Beach and Rec and senior services with the building and ground crew basically coming under Beach and Rec there. And that's fine. I'm sure Austin is doing a great job. The town operations is the one that's looks a little bit cumbersome. Some of these, I certainly will yield to your desires on this, but it looks like it's a pretty large grouping here. With the Sam being in charge of the public works and town engineer, that's a pretty important job in itself. And then the land use department is a couple of different people. You might want to consider whether all that will fit into one column or does it need two. The finance, Stacy has a lot of time on her hands, so yeah, she may as well give her a bunch of other stuff to do. Those 15 is a lot of people. I think I had 10 or 12 reporting to me, but it can get done. But it's and Peggy, I'm sure that you find it useful to be able to, if you have a question, you walk out the door and down the hall and you go straight to whoever it is, whether it be public health or building or whatever, rather than having to go through some senior person. I'm sure you'll continue to do that as in the day-to-day running of business. So yeah, a little consolidation is fine. And I'll yield to whatever you want to do as to who reports to who.
I think that I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think that the town operations, there's certain just certain things we're trying to improve. So Sam's focus is going to be on those things for each one of those departments, whatever it is. Land use, public health, building inspector, a lot of that is coordination and improving our processes and the public interface with those departments, because right now they are very siloed. There's not a lot of coordination with those. I'm not saying they do a great job, but there are ways to improve that and to improve the permitting process. So that would be something where having one person that they can kind of all sit together and come up with solutions, and he can kind of be a conduit for that, I think is really helpful. Emergency management, he works very closely with Public Works a lot anyway on, storms, storm response. And unfortunately, as you know, Fillmore, because you lived through this, we've had a lot of those kind of happen over the last 2 years. So, I think there's things that we could see how those could be improved, or managing the garage, or these are things the director of Public Works will still be responsible for all that. There's just another person to coordinate with, get advice from, and I think empower to make some big decisions versus having it all have to channel up to my office. And so that was kind of the thought process there, because as building inspector, or as fire marshal, he has a lot of permitting experience, and he understands, that whole regulatory piece of the job. And then on emergency management, he understands fleet management, and also Sam's personal background as a firefighter, and leading a brigade in his previous position, fleet management and emergency response. So that's a little bit some of the thought with that. I think this is going to be an evolution, as we move forward. I talked about last year when I did phase 1, that was beach and rec and seniors. This is kind of phase 2, to tackle specific issues and improvements. We're going to have to talk about these shared services that we have in the future, facilities. We have a staff member who's retiring there, and he's only 25% in our budget. And yet there's kind of a rejiggering now with the referendums passing, what the portfolio of our facilities look like. And so we're going to have to, Bill is going to be staying on for us a little bit more for another year or two, but we're going to have to think about that too, and how some of this is all rejiggered in the balance of who might be coming in eventually in the facilities role. So I think that this is a step forward. And I appreciate your thoughts though, Fillmore. And, I think last year we had some concern about the beach and rec and seniors merger. And I think Austin's done an amazing job, and things have gone really well there. So I have a lot of confidence in our staff. We have great people. And I think, this will prove to be similar to our experience with beach and rec and seniors.
Yeah, and the one that I'm looking at, the town clerk sort of sitting by itself or by herself there. Youth and family by itself, but yeah, that's a pretty big organization and offsite and sort of unique things to do. But the town clerk sort of sitting by itself rather than being part of anything else.
That was one where I think I struggled with. I think, I know under the previous model that had fallen under the ALMA assessor tax collector model, I think also they do elections. And so I was a little concerned. There's a lot of changes going on with how elections are going to be handled, perhaps with, if we do consider, start going much more aggressively into the absentee voting and things like that. So I thought it was better to kind of keep that out right now. But that may be a point in time where that would make sense to fold under, a bigger departmental umbrella as well.
No, Katie has her hand up also. We had a couple points.
Yeah, I piggybacking on what Fillmore said. First of all, I think I agree. Austin has done a bang-up job that's a pretty major transition, and Sam DeBura throughout COVID has, been remarkable. But my question is more on something, Peggy, that you had said about the shared services. Sorry, college kids are home for spring break and it's very noisy in my house right now. But you had talked a little bit about shared services, and that led to my question about technology, given that, there's been such an increase in the technology that we use. And do you feel like, and I know that from the Board of Ed side, their technology person is also their bus and food person. Do you think it's enough, the 50% for both facilities and technology at this point?
If I could just ask for everything I wanted, no, I think we need more technology staff for the town side. I think because the school demands have been so high, Art does an amazing job trying to juggle what he juggles, but it's just not enough to really serve both sides adequately. So that's something that I've had some conversations with the superintendent about just how how we allocate, how we look at that. I didn't put anything really into this budget in terms of that. But that's going to be an ongoing conversation because the school, as you said, is just transformed now, right? Technology is such a bigger demand now in terms of the school's day-to-day operations, and it is for the town. We're managing, and this is where I think it gets into, is it technology or like it costs us money to, manage the camera operator when we do the hybrid meetings. I mean, there's a lot of expenses that we're going to be taking on with these, technology, more accessible meeting structures. And where does that fall? Is that communications or is that technology? And that's a discussion we're having internally. Like, is it arts people that's supposed to be responsible to make sure we have somebody run a camera, or is that communications? The town doesn't have a communications person. So we kind of rely on, the webmaster, what kind of role that is we share with the school. So we will have to look at that whole function at one point, but it's not in this year's budget.
Omar, did you have your hand up?
Questions, by the way.
Yeah, I had coming back to the technology. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peggy, but the town doesn't cover 50% of the entire technology budget. I don't think it's really 50% of 2 or 3 of the people over there. Is that?
Yes. Yeah, you're correct. That I'm just saying some of the individuals in the technology department are funded by the town.
Yeah, I think Art and maybe Harry and a couple other people are 50-50, but they all aren't. So it's not like
it's only. I think it's I'm trying to remember now. It's the director. Yeah, and then there's 2. So there's 2 that are 50%, right? After the director.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just saying, and this is not to disparage their capabilities, but I don't think we're getting 50% of the value out of it just because the schools have required so much handholding with all the transition for, remote learning and everything over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, that we're paying 50% of Art and 2 other people, but it's been my experience that even if you go to somebody who we're not covering half of, one of the other technology people, they still jump right in just as if we are. So it's
they do. They do help.
Nobody's drawing a hard line there.
No, absolutely not. I think most people probably in the town don't know who's town versus Board of Ed when they call the technology group.
Yeah.
I had a couple of thoughts, but
sorry, John. I'm just looking at the
Okay.
screen. I don't know. Jean has mentioned. Is that right, Jean? Do you have a
Yeah.
question?
So this was the conversation we also had, and I do agree that, all the direct reports to you are probably not ideal. But are we creating and restructuring based on individuals? And if those individuals leave or retire, would we have the opportunity that somebody would have that skill set like Sam or like Austin? I guess that's and along that line, what's the cost of this if it's something that maybe when Sam or Austin retire, we'd have to go back to something different? I guess is really my question. Because
Um,
go ahead,
well,
sorry.
So I think that I'm very, we have a vacant director position for human resources, and then we have a need to figure out facilities, right? And so, my thinking is that we would look to make sure that we somehow, if we're going to bring in now there could be somebody that bubbles up over the next couple of years that we currently have on staff that could take over that. But I guess I think I would have a mind towards, as we look at those other positions, having somebody that would be able to kind of step into that kind of senior leadership role. That's what I would hope. So we've got a little bit of a runway to do that.
So in the budget, then some of these people, their salaries are being elevated on this top line.
Yeah, they're the budget in the 8150 account, which is where we usually handle promotions, and there's an accounting, there's a whole backup to elevation of salaries, and there's a couple of other pieces of that that's kind of considered the reorganization. It also includes the reduction of a position because of somebody's departure, and we're not going to fill it. So there's a number of things to cover the cost of this.
So financially, I know you had talked about, and I think Fillmore brought it up, the town clerk. If you put the town clerk under finance, would that make sense and maybe save us the increase for that position? Because it seems to me like what's the assessor, the tax collector, and town clerk would make sense.
The town
finance.
The town clerk, there's no the town clerk's additional budget request is for hours related to the elections.
But she is not getting an increase.
No,
okay, so she's not
no.
getting an increase for that. Okay.
No.
Right.
No, she's staying the same. She's
Okay.
just a direct, like, the only people that would be getting it would be this new division operations leader and the new finance and administrative services person. And then there's a couple of other movements at lower levels as part of the reorganization.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm not questioning, I'm just curious. And I just always concerned when we have these great people that work for the town, which we do. And then, they wear multiple hats. I think Katie referenced Art, who's our, bus coordinator. There's just so much when they have multiple hats on. So that's always what I'm concerned about. Although I do believe the two people mentioned can handle it. I just, long-term what happens there. But thank you.
If I could, yeah.
Okay.
A question for Peggy. Do I understand that the reason that you did not move forward with Colleen's request for the additional hours is because you're thinking that that somebody that Stacy could send one of her finance people up to fill in and be sort of a semi-tax collector person? And is that the rationale?
Partly, yeah. I mean, overall, I was just trying to look, my goal is trying to reduce the growth of the fixed part of the budget, right? And so that's when I took a view of all the additional budget requests and tried to really pare down what would be absolutely necessary. And I thought there are other ways we can accommodate some of these requests through the reorganization, through help from other departments, and then also assess the real need. And this is not to question the staff's requests in the sense that I don't think they're being truthful. It's just more, can we think about things in a different way? And that's what I was trying to do with that. So I had presented to the Board of Selectmen, I basically took all the requests and no one really got everything that they wanted except one or two people. Everybody else, like the police department, had requested 3 people. I had recommended 2. I had actually did not request any additional hours for the fire marshal, and the board decided to reinstate those because that's a very specialized type of function. And I understand that. And with Sam's new position, any extra help for him, I think is beneficial in terms of that department. I did support the registrars because they are woefully underpaid relative to what other towns pay their registrars, and it's a very difficult position to recruit somebody. So I supported that. I trimmed back the beach and recreation requests, and they just said, "Hey, we'll give you a 5% increase in your maintenance budget." The request had been like a 20% increase. So I did that with the fire departments too. I took the 5% number, doubled the cost of, because we don't know where inflation is, right? So I took a COLA and doubled it and just applied that. So I was just trying to, slow the growth. That's all. And I tried to take the same approach to each request as much as I could. That's all. So if you decide that you feel that this is worthy, that's great. I'm just trying to keep it down as much as possible because we all know that we have a lot of, there's going to be a lot of pressure on this budget over the next couple of years as we start taking on the capital requirements.
I'm going to jump in, Peg. Peg, I don't know if anybody still needs this chart, but if they don't, if you can stop sharing, that would be great. And Gene, I know you had a question for Peggy, which I believe Fillmore asked, but if you had one, you're reducing your direct reports is fine. I do kind of agree with Gene said too. Mindful of some of those department heads reporting to is probably not the usual MO for other towns and municipalities, but your town and your employees better. But I do agree if you tailor just to an employee, if that employee leaves, it may be an issue down the road, but them. And with all due respect to Fillmore, I think the tax collector, the assessor, not that I'm trying to pile on Stacy, that's just a natural report into the finance office and to the finance director. I think that makes sense. I've never seen the police department report to anyone, with all due respect, but maybe the police commission and the board of selectmen, but that's a different story. But just thoughts. You've been there, the team, and you know what you're looking to accomplish. So what I did hear you say, even when it came to Colleen, it was some of which reorg, but some of which you're just trying to reduce the number. I believe is what you said along those lines. Any questions? Any other questions for Peggy?
No.
Peggy, we do appreciate your time.
Yep. Okay. Thank you
very much. Stacey, or anybody else who would like to address the Board of Finance?
No, I think I think that's it.
I had a couple of thoughts, but I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything particular pertaining to the budget. Like I said last time, I don't want to take this piecemeal. So at the next meeting, we can go through if everybody's okay with that, the additional budget requests and take them one at a time, and which ones we want to keep or change or not, depending on this board. But is there any other thoughts?
Separate thought, did we ever get Cindy on board here?
Cindy texted me. She was late for a showing. So she was trying to get on, then she had a showing and she wanted to know how long we're going to be here. And I said, I didn't know. I said, it could be 30 minutes, could be 60. This is about 15, 20 minutes ago. So as far as I know, Fillmore, she's not on as of right now.
Okay.
I just want to, Gene.
Is there a way we could just do some of the add-ons tonight, the additional budget requests? It seems like we could get some of it done tonight.
Sure, Gene. If you want to take a few, I wanted to make a like an overall concept to think about for the next meeting. I think we're all concerned about, the next few years and what it's going to mean as the referendum went through. So I do want to address at some point at the next meeting, adding more to the CIP plan and things like that. It may affect our mill rate. So I'll have, throw some numbers out, or we can all throw some numbers out and have Stacy see the impact. But I just think it'll help. And we all know this, it'll help level out where we're going in the future. So I want to plant that seed. I am going to bring it up at the next meeting, and Stace will ask you to run some numbers during the meeting, if that's okay, to see the impact on the mill rate. If anybody has any issues with that, Justin, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
No, I do have a comment before we get into it.
Okay. If there's something, if there's anything someone wants to bring up at the next meeting or now, that's great. But I just wanted to start that conversation now because I think it's something that needs to be, at the very least, discussed. Justin?
Yeah, I just want to plant the seed. My concern has always been we're kind of focusing on the add-ons, and it did come up a little bit in the Board of Selectmen meeting, but we don't really. I know behind the scenes there's work done. Don't get me wrong, but we never really look at the base budget. And I just always had a concern that, we have a grand list that basically grows at about 0.5%, like barely moves. There might be a jump this year we'll get into, but historically that grows very little. We have a town that's, largely built out. So the ability to grow that grand list, I think, is limited. And yet we have taxes that grow, reasonably, but, whatever, 3 to 5%. So I just kind of look at that and I say, like, that's just, in my mind, that's not really sustainable when you have a grand list that grows at half of 1% versus expenses that grow kind of steadily at, inflation even. That's just not sustainable. So at some point, Peggy was alluding to it, but is there like the next phase of this in terms of some kind of consolidation, I guess, or finding places not just to limit increases, but actually to save money. I mean, that's just kind of a philosophy that really weighs on me going forward.
Fair point, Justin. I understand what you said, Gene.
I do think that's a fair point, and that is something that we can look at. I think the purposes when I said for tonight is just to try to get some of it so we have more time at the next meeting to have, more meaningful discussions. I think going to John's point, I am completely in agreement with him that we probably need to look at the amount of money that we can put in capital. And I think that should be a priority of this board. I know Stacy has her chart that we have used for the last couple of years with budget forecasting, where she can, as John talked about, in real time, kind of look at the impact on the mill rate. And I think that's really important. I will always fight to protect the capital. And I do think there's a way to protect the capital and keep and be able to cover a little bit, not the whole thing, but the debt service that's coming on. I think to John's point, the town voted for these 3 projects. The debt service is going to be high. We'll do our best to mitigate it, but people are going to have to pay more. And they knew that going into it. And I think we have to be realistic about what we can do as a board. And, we're elected officials and we go with what the town voted on. But it's going to be an increase in taxes. So, I want to help as much as I can, but I also think looking at reducing the budget, if we can find it in efficiencies, I'm all for it. I don't believe the town budget is fat. I don't believe that there's a lot to cut there. So that's always my hesitation. But again, I think with the help of Stacy's guidance and what John is talking about, I agree with, there's ways for us to flatten out the peaks, which has always been our conversations when the debt service comes on. And that's in one of those ways is the capital.
Thanks, Gene. Anything else on that? And I have no issue with taking a few, going down the list of the additional budget requests, or half or whatever we want to start doing. And Justin, I understand you. I mean, usually, the budget is it's salaries, benefits, but the Board of Ed is a good chunk of the budget. And then you have, right now our debt service is not that big, but I understand. I think it's something we all want to be mindful of.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. In the short time I've been here, there's no obvious fat. I'm just saying that's why it's more of a philosophy. Like and I know Peggy's trying to do that. Just it's more of a strategic realignment or whatever. Restructuring. So it's not just cutting the budget, just trying to find ways to do more with less.
And I agree, and I compliment, and I've said this before. A lot of towns. And Fillmore, this, and I'm sure a lot of you do, but even the Board of Ed and the town are so separate. They don't share any services. So the fact that they set the finance and technology, even to some degree, is a big step. So I think along those lines, Justin, that's where you go. The more you can do that, I'm not just talking about the BOE, right, but the better off you'll be in the long run. But you've all done a good job in the past of keeping this budget what it is, and of course Stacy too, and so we just gotta, as Gene, you said earlier, we try to level out those peaks, and that's what we're looking for. So who wants to take the first one, the beach and recreation? We'll start with the additional budget request. If we're looking to do this, let's start with a motion and to accept, deny, increase, decrease. Gene, you have your hand up first.
Stacy, can you share the request just to have it up.
So I will lose the ability to see your hand, so Justin can tell me, or you can just shout it out. Go ahead. Fillmore?
Yeah, my recollection is that when we spoke a couple of nights ago, or the last time, we had talked about on the beach and rec, that $2,800 for plan and cycle, that we had talked about giving them. I have written down here 7920. In other words, that we had talked about giving them another more money. Am I mistaken?
No, I think there was as you can see, the 129020. So I only remember Austin saying, well, if you're going to put it in, whatever we put in, whether it's 2, 5, 7, 10, is to try to do it every year. So I think that's where, if we lower this number to 20, but we want to be consistent with it, that's my take on that. So, whether we want to give the full 20, maybe not, but let's come up with a number that we think we can keep every year.
No, I'm just trying to recall. I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just trying to recall our conversation from night before last, and I seem to recall that we had talked about moving that top, where they asked for 10. Selectmen gave them 2,800. I had thought that we were bumping that up, but I could be mistaken.
I wrote down 5,000 next to mine. From the 2,800, I wrote down 5.
Okay.
So he had 10, they were given 28. I wrote down 5,000. I don't know if that's what he was.
Yeah, I wrote down 7,900, but okay. So, but anyway, we both remember that we talked about adding more, but that's not a done deal.
Correct.
Do you want me to put 5 in here for the planned maintenance?
I'm more than okay with 5 there.
Yeah, I thought that, I would support 5.
Can we work backwards and start with the full ask and then start limiting
Well, the
it?
full ask was 20,
Right.
and the Board of BOS gave them 7,800. So the difference would be the 12.
The 12, right.
No, the 12,920 was savings that we found after the Board of Selectmen did their work, because we were looking at the accounts, and remember our before and after school person left, and then Austin was able to find savings and use one of his programmers to work for before and after school as well. So we actually have a savings of 12,920 since the Board of Selectmen submitted their budget. So I just put it up here so that maybe that would help you be able to support more of his additional budget request.
So if he's asking for 20, they found 12,900. Is that where you're going with this, Stace?
Yeah.
What's the difference
Going,
between?
and that's where Fillmore got his 7.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
where I came up with it, that we plugged in 7920 plus the 5 means that they essentially break even.
Here's what I have to, we have 20,000. They're saving 12,920. They're getting 7,800. Do we want to? If you're saving.
So they come out with a net zero.
So if we do 7920 there and then 5, and then the savings that we found, that would be a net zero.
I'm
Correct.
okay with that.
That's fine.
Yeah. So they asked for 20. We give them 12,900, but they're paying for that themselves. Okay.
In essence, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would support that.
I support that.
Goodbye, me.
You.
Okay, building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's nothing else there. Building, I think I'm good with the department's busy, but I'll entertain discussion or.
Oh, that's good.
I support it.
I'm good there.
So well, Gene, I'm gonna use you. It's a full 8042. We're good.
Oh, with everything? Okay.
No, wait a minute. No, is that what you're saying?
To give them the extra, the 30 to 35.5 hours.
Yes, correct.
Um,
They didn't get anything. I'm sorry, I'm missing this, but the request was 8042. The extra 5.5 hours plus I mean, if you want to take the uniforms out, I guess you can. I mean, I don't know. That's
Will they get that
$400.
every other year now?
So, I mean, I'm good with the 7642 or the 8042. I think they need the help. I know they do.
all
I'm
right,
good with the 8042.
okay.
And, sorry, John, can I speak too?
Go ahead, Justin.
I don't have a problem with that. I know Vinny is busy. I guess I just kind of to what Peggy was talking about earlier, and it's very hard to find savings. Just someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I do recall when we had that retirement, the idea was that these departments would go from 3 to 2, and they would institute a sharing arrangement. And Vinny did mention it's kind of hard to train them in the various disciplines, but I just want to, for my own sake, I'm not against this, but is my recollection correct? From a couple of years ago when we had that retirement coming, I thought the plan was that was part of Peggy's initial reorganization, that they would retire a person, and then that would be the 2 would be the number going forward. Am I wrong on that, or?
No,
I
go
don't
ahead,
know.
Fillmore.
Let me ask a question for Stacy. Is there any public listening in on this?
I think Vinny and Sam are here.
Okay,
And it's recorded, Fillmore.
It's recorded and it's open to the public. So
all right.
It'll be public.
Uh-oh, okay.
I mean,
Recorded.
to me, I get what you're saying, Justin. And probably prior to COVID, that probably was the case. I don't think we anticipated the increase in that department with, permits and things. So I would probably argue that that's kind of changed the landscape a little bit.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Jean. That is what I recall the conversation being, and I wasn't here pre-COVID, so I don't remember the conversation you're referring to, Justin, but I do remember the percentage of increase of building permits and things like that have kind of skyrocketed and really been a burden on that department. So that's what I have in my notes about why it's different than maybe pre-COVID.
and sometimes you're the best laid plans of, right? And sometimes you think this is going to work and then things change. So, and I get what you're saying, Justin, but to me, as busy as the office is and additional hours, and they bring revenue in, significant revenue, I'm going to support it. And I know you said you would too. You wanted to recollect. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was.
I'm partly checking my own memory, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Sometimes
initially that was the
I've heard that
plan.
story before other places, oh, this one's going to retire, we're going to do this, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. And it really depends on personnel sometimes too.
all right.
Yeah, I think
Okay, thank
the personnel that retired might not have been the most productive person around.
So I said it a little differently, Fillmore.
Yeah,
Let's be careful.
Yeah.
I was.
Exactly. All right, any other,
So, I'm supportive of it.
so we're good with the 8042.
Yeah.
All right. The next on the agenda would be the fire marshal. The amount was 12, the BOS gave 6. I'm not going to speak for Sam. I'm not sure if he's here. I think he's okay with the 6, but does anybody have any thoughts or?
I guess if he's here, my question would be, with his added responsibilities, should we be giving him
He's here, so why don't we, Stacy's, I believe he's here, so, I'm sorry, Jen, I'm interrupt you, maybe we can ask him.
I just moved him over, so he's rejoining. As
Thanks,
everything
Sam.
else. Yep.
Sam, you there?
I'm here.
So, Gene had a question for you. I had a minor one, but Gene will fire away, Gene.
So Sam, I guess my question is, with your added responsibilities that we just heard about and the reports to you, and I know, with your added responsibilities, would it make sense for us to fund this so that you have the help that you need? We kind of same way we dealt with Austin last budget cycle, that you really do need the help now, especially with your heavy hat that you were wearing.
So on average, I have about 435 buildings I have to inspect each year. We're kind of catching up again now from COVID because we weren't going out during COVID. So between reviewing plans, issuing permits, last year I reviewed 553 permits, I believe, to review and issue. Some were gas permits, open burning permits, building permits, and some of them were involved, sprinkler permits. So some of them take some time to review. So there is the workload there. I was happy that the selectmen put at least the half of it back. I'm not going to balk if you guys want to put it all back, but I kind of agreed that I would try to make it work with half of it. And I know the next year is going to be probably no ask at all. So that's why I really kind of went for it all this year. But it's up to you. If you try to be a team player, if you want me to try to make it work with the 6 this year, I'll see. But if I come back next year for the extra 4 hours a week, it might happen, because it's only adding 8 hours a week for the inspectors.
I mean, my take, Sam, is, and I know next year maybe a no ask, but I don't think that would be enough reason if you came here and said, hey, I tried it for 6, it didn't work, or it did work. I would support it going forward, but let's hear from the rest of the board.
Yeah, let's try the 6.
Sam, is there a chance you're going to come back in the middle of the budget cycle?
I don't know.
Realistically, yeah. But I mean, it's a possibility, right?
Well, and so it all depends too on, how many fires we have. So, we get some fires that kind of blows things out of the budget, because it's, if we have to spend 5 or 6 hours doing a few fire investigations, it takes time away from the inspections. So it's happened. We've had a few this year.
We don't know what it's going to look like. And I understand the idea of you're good with 6, and that's fine. I think it's not worth just during the 6. I think it makes more sense because next year we don't know what it's going to look like. And I have a feeling there's a good chance you'll come back in the middle, which, we've always said to everyone, we'd rather it in the budget than special appropriations. So I think following our own mantra for years, it's not that much money. And it seems to me this is the year to do it, because we don't know what's going to happen further down the line. And there's a justification for it. There's precedence for it. We did it for Austin when he took on more reports. And, we just looked at the reporting. I mean, he's got the most reports. It's heavy reports. I just don't understand why we would nickel dime him when we're putting more responsibility on him.
How did Austin get into this? I'm just kidding.
No, because we said the same thing. He's got a lot of responsibility, and we wanted to make sure he had the staff that he needed and the resources he needs. And I think if, we're at the same position now with Sam, and I think Sam, has a lot going on, and I think anything we can do, and I really don't see the point in nickel and diming this. It's not going to make an impact on the mill rate. It's a waste of our time to have him come back, do a special appropriation, and, then it alters the year next year when we start to look at the base. And
Jean, just so I'm clear on what you're asking, are you saying go with the 6 or go with the 12?
Oh,
12.
Oh,
I mean, for $6,000, it's not going to
Justin.
impact the budget.
no, that's totally fair. I just wanted to be clear.
Justin,
I hear you, Gene, but that's kind of the problem at all. You know, every little bit adds up, and if you can't deal with the little ones, then you know, we're never going to take care of the big ones. I guess the Beach and Rec is an outward facing group. Everyone uses the beaches. My question for Sam would be, you know, are any of the inspections, are we getting complaints, you know, or are projects being delayed as a result? Or, you know, well, I'll leave it at that. You know, if it's working okay, it's just taking a little bit longer.
Well,
I'd say let's try it.
so the problem is nobody's going to complain if they don't get a fire inspection,
Right.
right? So, you know, we're obligated
Well,
statutorily.
You're gonna complain. Sorry to cut you off, but I mean, you know, gas lines and gas hookups. I mean, yeah, they will complain if they're waiting to
Well,
hook up.
so
their repair.
those are getting done. The problem is it's the other stuff, the annual, the biannual, the triannual
Okay.
stuff. Those are what we're getting behind. So when the fire code, so there used to be every year we had to do all these buildings. So I would have had to do all those 775 buildings every year. So now they put in a schedule of 1 to 4 years, depending on their occupancy classification. So that's why I'm saying I have to do at least 435 a year to maintain. The bulk of them are in the business, and that's, you know, probably 50% of them are every 3 years. But if I do them all in 1 year, I'll never get them all done. So we try to take a third of them, you know, split it up, you know, get them on a 3-year cycle, you know, a third of them on a 3-year cycle, so it makes it more palatable. The problem is it doesn't, if we, especially these residential ones, if we don't get around to them and something happens and you get a fatality, the town could be held liable because there's a statute that says that if we failure to inspect, we're not immune.
And then, you know, again, it's an increase in the workload. I don't understand, you know, we're asking him to do more, Justin. It's not that he's doing the same job and he's asking for an increase. There's an increase in the workflow. And I don't understand how we justify and the liability if we don't get these done. And I just, for $6,000 more, I just don't understand why and chance that he'd have to come back mid-year and get more. It's a silly conversation, in my opinion.
And they're in the process of.
I'm going to jump in here
unit.
for a minute because I'm sorry, Sam. I'm going to jump in. I mean, this is to some degree, Gene, I understand it's 6,000. If you had to come back mid-year, that would really frustrate me. The other thing is, you know, to see if it works, to see what happens, and to get it done. And I understand Justin's point. Every time you add something to the budget, you know, obviously it normally doesn't come out. I also had the first select woman here, and she's talking about reorganization. I know, Sam, you're part of that reorganization, but there's the other people. And part of the reason she left some of these where they were was because of the reorg. So I think on that side too, you know, I don't know how that would affect your this request or not affect this request, Sam. But
Well,
I mean, good.
So there's nobody else that's going to be able to share my services. You know, is you have to be state certified. You know, you have to go through the class. So what's in my office are the people that can do the fire inspections.
And there's no administrative work done there.
Well, there is. That's where I'm kind of bogged down with most of the administrative work, and the guys are going out in the field and doing the inspections. So I've been doing all the approval, the permit approvals, the plan reviews. You know, I'd rather be out in the field, but you know, I have to do most of the administrative stuff now. You know, probably 75% of my time is spent administrative work now instead of being out in the field.
And not the best use. So here,
it's a lot easier out in the field.
So if I can, one other thing, not to knock down the conversation, but included in the reorg in the 8150 is also increasing the hours for the deputy from 30 hours to 35 and a half. Just so you all know that that's also included in there to help Sam.
and so that's my solidifies my point before and what we're trying to, so to see how this year works and see, I gave it the 6,000 and Gene, I agree with you on a 20 something million and 80, 50 something BOE
$80
budget.
million budget.
Yeah, it's not gonna affect things, but there is part of the reorg too, where, again, Peggy was here and said, this is what I'm doing. Let's see what happens.
John,
Yes. Katie?
I may have missed this. I may have missed this because I had to switch technology, but do we have any insight on the Board of Selectmen's rationale to cut in the first place?
I think Stacy just mentioned there was a reorg, and go ahead, Stacy. I don't have to speak for you, but the extra hours for the deputy. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't have a rationale why we cut the 12 to the 6. I just wanted you guys to know that we are offering Sam a little bit of more help over and above this. That's all. I think Peggy's still on if she wants to talk about that.
No, Peggy had to go on to another call. She did text
Oh,
me.
okay. Yeah.
And we could
I
table
think
this to the
also
next
too,
meeting.
it was her trying to keep the budget down.
Correct.
So like I said, if you want to give me the 12, that's great, but if I at least need the 6, just to get a few
I think we
more.
all agree you're going to get to 6, Sam. I don't think that you have to worry about. Correct?
Maybe, Sam, maybe if you can find an escape versus a tile, we can find the extra money.
Say that again?
Maybe
think
if
Justin's
you can
trying to be
find a
funny.
Ford Escape versus the Tahoe, you can, that
Oh,
savings
yeah,
you get.
I did. I actually got them cheaper than the police department did.
Good job.
I'm gonna go on record if we do the 6, that it's absolutely nickel and diming and when you try to save pennies and in the long run, it's gonna cost us potentially more money. I just don't understand it. There's so many things to look at in this budget. Like you said, it's an $80 million budget. This is just silly.
I like your spirit, Jane.
Thank you.
I do too.
So Katie, stay with me.
I always stay with you.
I
You're my
know you
mentor.
do. Thank you.
As I listen to the chatter, it's with all the pros and cons, it looks like we're ending up at the 6th level.
Disagree,
Again,
John.
I know that. And if he comes back before 6 months, you can say, John, I told you so more than once.
Don't you worry, I will, believe me.
I said more than once, but not more than 10 times. All right. I mean, we can always change it again and we can talk to Peg and see the rationale, but for right now, I believe it'll stay at 6. The POS recommended 6. Justin, anybody else on that?
Oh, so, Katie, your hand's still up. You mean that or?
Katie, you're
I think
muted
that
if
was
you're
from
talking.
before. I think that was from before, so I think we're good.
All right. No fines for
Yes,
that.
it's from before. Sorry about that.
No problem. Health Department. I mean, the question would be, I'm not in favor of putting in the second request. POS put in the 24,246 out of the 86,105. Thoughts there on either one?
Stacy, is this a position that we can use ARP funds for? American
ARP funds?
Yeah. Couldn't we do that?
We did for this fiscal year. So we do have a part-timer in there, but I think he's looking for a permanent part-timer moving forward.
So the fund that runs off at the June 30th is this year, correct?
Correct, yes.
So this position would be or is one of the people there in the open room when you walk in the door. And if they're all now going to be working for Sam, then maybe he can encourage a little bit of sharing of load when people have to go out, and so that between the health and the building and whoever else is in there, that they can end up being a little bit more sharing. Is that,
Yeah, Fillmore, here's the point. This was ARP funded to the best of my knowledge. I'm not sure about prior to that, but now there'll be a part-time position going forward that we will own after this. That's something to keep in mind. And then normally after a while, your part-times become full-time, as we all know. But
yeah,
But I think we did have conversations that this was during the pandemic, it was for the pandemic. We are coming through the pandemic, and I'm not sure that, there are other positions on the Board of Ed side that are not going to be funded this year. And, it served its purpose. We had the funds for it. I don't think we need to keep going.
I'm
The
more than
Board of
okay.
Selectmen didn't
Hold it
support
out.
it.
Gene, that's a fair point, but the question I'm having, and Gene, I'm assuming you're right, but states this person was not in position prior to the pandemic. Is that correct?
We did a reorg and then we had the retirement, and at that point in time, this position was not there. And then once things picked up with COVID, we decided to use ARP funds to get the department at least a half-time person, because currently there is no dedicated secretarial staff to the health department.
And how would the reorg affect this, or is that a question for Peggy?
I mean, it does not, other than your point that you had mentioned to Sam. Could that
Okay.
work? And I don't know how that whole area works over there.
Can I say something?
Sure, Sam.
In my opinion, that admin is needed. I
Part-time?
I heard Justin's conversation about, when the retirement came, we're going to go down to 2, but you can't run this outer office with just 2 people. There were 3 full-timers up there years ago, and every time somebody retired, they replaced them with a part-timer, and now we're back up to 2 full-times and 1 part-time.
You got 2.5 now.
2.5. So you need at least that. The health department needs at least somebody. They were sharing with zoning, and then that person ended up being full-time for zoning. So he technically doesn't have anybody right now. The other person does building and fire solely. It's not that they don't help out, but their primary functions are building, fire, and zoning, and Trent doesn't have anybody. So he needs at least the admin.
So your suggestion is you need the admin, the part-time admin.
Yes.
yeah, I'll support that.
I thought more people weren't coming into the office. It was not the whole purpose that less people are going in.
So there has been a little bit of spike of people coming back in since the whole mask mandates dropped. We're going to get some data. We're going to collect some data on how many people are coming in and who they're coming in to see. And, hopefully by July, we'll have some good information to utilize.
I will support the 24-20, but not the additional budget for the full-time health staff. So
I could live with that.
Yeah, I'm good.
I agree with that too.
If Sam keeps talking, he's definitely getting that Ford Escape. I don't know if that's.
thanks, Sam. You want to finish this next top of the page, and I do have a wait to go to. I'm sorry, but
No, that's all right. I just want to get through some of them.
Okay, so let's the HR, Madison Hose, and North Mass. I guess, and then we'll stop, and then we'll do police services for the next one. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I'm good with those 3.
Yep, me too.
Justin, Jean.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm fine,
so
yeah.
good. Sage, you're getting all this, right?
Sure am. Yep.
Thank you. If we're okay with that, I would leave off there, and we'll start with police services and with some other obviously major topics going forward for our next meeting.
And we've only got 2 more meetings to wrap this up.
Correct. So next Tuesday will be a lot of the
I think-
it's Tuesday. Good.
If they go like this, I think we're in good shape, no?
We'll get it done. I don't know if anybody's worried. If we're worried, we'll stay on. we'll stay a little longer now, but I think Tuesday will be most of the heavy lifting. That's what I'm thinking. If that's, Stacy, is that our next meeting? I didn't look at my calendar.
It's Wednesday, the 16th. at
Tuesday
6
won't be any
o'clock.
heavy.
We only have an hour though, because that's a Board of Finance meeting unless we reconvene after the meeting.
Or
Yeah.
we start a little bit earlier. All right.
True.
We just do a shortened version of ours and then go right back into the.
Yeah,
budget.
that's fine. There wasn't
We
a
have,
lot last weekend. Oh,
we have
yes,
a pretty
we got
heavy
Milliman
meeting.
coming. I think we may have to start a little bit earlier.
You
Do
say
you
we
want me
have
to
a-
change the time?
Yeah, if we can agree now.
Yeah, let's do that. You say we have a heavy agenda at the regular meeting next week?
We
Yeah, you have
do.
Milliman, you have the actuarial and the pension.
The
I mean, you want us to do
auditors.
5:30?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do 5:30.
Are we good with that? Everyone?
Okay.
And then bring your pillows because we could come back after our regular meeting and go to 10 or 11 and get it done.
Hey, Board of Ed, we're up to 2 in the morning doing negotiations, so 11's not bad.
Yeah, we
11's
can,
not
Yeah,
bad. I've been there. I'd rather not go back there.
yeah, we can wear our jammies.
Fillmore needs his midnight snack though.
I will put my jammies on. Is it in person or are we remote again?
It's hybrid right now.
Hybrid right now. If I'm feeling better, I'd be there in person. So,
Yeah.
that's where I plan on being. So,
Okay, I might join you.
Good.
if there's anything we want to address tonight, or we're good for Wednesday at 5:30.
Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, everyone.